Hello, we are back. We have chapter 2. The backwards looking Arthur, an Actuarial Odyssey. You'll recall from last week that we went through all of chapter 1 and we learned Arthur's in trouble. Arthur is in an existential crisis, and Arthur must find the actual meaning and purpose of life if he is to continue with any credibility to sell life insurance, for which he needs to understand its greater purpose and meaning. He set out now on an odyssey, a voyage, a quest, to somehow find these answers. We join him at his first step of the investigation, chapter 2. Arthur observed quite ingeniously that though there were a great variety of cultures and peoples around the world, there are still a few basic human needs and proclivities common to all. Understanding these would thus help him to lay bare the most universal and eternal features of human existence. Hence, Arthur knew that the first steps in any search for the meaning and purpose of life must begin with these most basic human needs and proclivities. Indeed, Arthur opened his query with perhaps the most human proclivity of all, the bodily elimination of waste. Arthur was fascinated to learn how entire industries had been built over the last century simply to accommodate the human elimination of waste. There was, as his investigation would uncover, quite a hefty profit to be made from this most natural of human urges. Indeed, as Arthur looked into matters more deeply, he was shocked to learn of a most unpleasant and quite seedy side to the human elimination of waste. The competition for human waste was fierce. Mammoth corporations rose and fell based upon their capacity to facilitate this basic human need. In their craven desire to capture market share, human waste industrialists often engaged in what could be fairly deceptive advertising tactics, tempting the public with their shiny seats and scented rolls of tissue to eliminate their human waste with them. Arthur was disgusted by the whole scene, but he had to know more. He arranged an interview with a leading human waste industrialist, Felix Harper. The Harper family had been in human waste for over 40 years. Felix's father, the late Claude Harper, had been the first to recognize the potential profit from tapping into the seemingly bottomless reservoir of that was produced by the human elimination of waste. An enormous portrait of Claude Harper adorned the waiting area just outside Felix's office. For all the money he'd earned from people giving him their human waste, Claude had an almost taciturn look about him, with long worry lines creasing his face and heavy bags beneath both eyes. These were no doubt from the many sleepless nights when old Claude lay with his mind fixed on the business of capturing still more of the people's human waste, all for himself. Arthur developed a fairly unflattering image of Felix Harper as he sat waiting. He pictured an obsessed corporate monster installing microphones in the company's bathrooms to better hear each flush, which no doubt fell upon his ears like the ring of a cash register. He imagined Felix's office walls made from baby blue bathroom tiles with tables of free samples, from lemon-scented toilet rolls to cinnamon toast potpourri, cluttering a table along a back wall. Arthur shuddered at the image of walking in to meet Felix. He pictured him extending a cold, hairy hand, still wet from having used one of those 20-second blow dryers, the financial residue of human waste dripping from his every pore as he spoke excitedly of the fortune he'd gleaned from humans, eliminating their waste, all for him. The stale receptionist area was revealing enough, with its literary assortment of modern urinal, today's plumber, and toilet world. The ghoulish portrait of Claude, the patriarch of plungers, confronted all who entered, and just beneath it, the refreshing water cooler, inviting, indeed tempting, nay, beckoning, for all to come and take of its bounty. It was, of course, but a coy, mocking hoax, put there in search of fool's gold, from those who would drink merely as a prelude to eliminate. Arthur had known that the world created by the human waste industrialists was ugly. Nothing, however, had prepared him for the true depths of depravity. But Arthur had a mission, and so he steeled himself for his visit with Felix to probe the base reality of human waste elimination, perchance to grasp more fully certain intangible truths behind the meaning and purpose of life. Felix was punctual. One had to grant him that. At precisely 2:15, his office doors swung open, and out popped the little man. His diminutive stature at first threw Arthur off. His grandfather's portrait, drawn from the shoulders up, suggested the image of a hulking industrial giant, confidently peering out over his clientele of human waste eliminators. The smaller man before him now seemed to have inherited all of his grandfather's human waste, but none of its luster. Arthur settled into his patent leather seat across from Felix, who looked out from behind his desk with a cheerful smile. "So, how may I help you?" Felix asked. Arthur explained that he had come to deepen his appreciation for the corporate command over human waste elimination. Felix began to detail the long history of his family's relentless climb in human waste. Arthur listened briefly, then stood and circled his seat before interrupting. "You just don't get it, do you?" Arthur shot back. "Excuse me? Don't you see?" Arthur demanded. "This human waste, it's merchandise to you and your ilk. But for us, those who produce it day in and day out, it's a part of us, a way of a basic necessity. God damn it!" "What's the point?" the now uneasy human waste industrialist replied. "What's the point? What's the point? I'll tell you what the point is. You've turned a deeply personal, daily necessity into a profit-driven industry. You've turned a natural and basic, shared, collective, and universal human activity into a private, materialistic ritual, dividing rich and poor human waste eliminators, all out of some carnal corporate greed for our human waste. That's outrageous!" the human waste industrialist shrieked. "Is it now?" countered Arthur. "Well, tell me this. all people must eliminate human waste. Am I right? Well, sure. But all people don't eliminate human waste equally, do they now? Well, I don't know what you're talking about, the now indignant human waste industrialist retorted. How can you justify providing some people with a double deluxe Model 11 commode to eliminate their waste while peddling off inferior human waste eliminator devices to other, less wealthy persons? Arthur demanded. That's just the market. Some people have more money to spend than others, so they go for our double deluxe model, responded the human waste industrialist, regaining his confidence. I see. So it all comes down to money, eh? Arthur snidely replied, eyeing his prey. What do you mean? Everything comes down to money. I mean, what are you, some kind of a communist? Arthur shrank back. He remained deeply sensitive to this charge ever since childhood. He could still hear his mother's scolding words. What are you, some kind of a communist? Any time little Arthur neglected his chores, his mother would find him reading in his bed or playing with some friends instead of washing the car or cleaning his rifle, and she would give him a long lecture reminding him that this wasn't the Soviet Union or Red China, how they weren't living on some commune where everyone else was going to clean up your mess. If little Arthur dared to say anything, he would always get the same response. Yeah, well, why don't you just go back to Russia? But Arthur settled his nerves and stuck to the topic. Everything comes down to money, eh? Sure. Even human waste elimination, the most basic and universal human need, has a price. In a manner of speaking, Arthur leaned out over Felix's desk. We're not talking tangerines here. We're talking about the human elimination of waste. It's not like it's a market-driven decision. If you gotta go, you gotta go. Well, that's true. But if you want to use our machines to do it, you have to pay the price. I see. An exasperated Arthur replied, slipping back into his seat. So it doesn't bother you in the least that you are using human waste to create a society of the haves and have-nots, deciding who will eliminate their human waste, where and in how much comfort. The way I see it, by serving my clients' human waste needs, that is to say, their personal sanitation preferences, I am simply assisting a very natural and market-driven process, the industrialist explained. And so, where does it all end? Bemoaned Arthur, leaping to his feet. This valuing of one person's human waste above another's, this deciding which people will eliminate their human waste where and how, this arbitrary division of society into luxury and economy classes of human waste eliminators. Now see here! And now, infuriated, Felix responded, but Arthur interrupted. It's all starting to become pretty clear to me now. Arthur sat back and propped up his feet on the edge of Felix Harper's desk. Perhaps I should explain. Explain what? You see, I'm on a mission. I am seeking the meaning and purpose of life. That is what has brought me to your office today. I see, Felix remarked, looking down at his watch. The meaning and purpose of life. Indeed, and I must say that this little talk has been most enlightening. How so? Let's just say that I never knew the elimination of human waste could be so multifaceted. To most of us, it's a pretty simple and straightforward affair, but To a rapacious industrialist such as yourself, human waste is a stepping stone to riches. In your pursuits, our elimination of waste is a matter of profit and loss, market share, a mere pretext for hawking a host of complementary consumer goods. So, are we hurting? Felix answered back. Maybe no one. Anyway, who knows? Heck, maybe we're all to blame, turning our elimination of human waste needs over to an industry built on corporate greed, forever coveting our precious human waste. And how does this explain the meaning and purpose of life? You see, said Arthur, that's the difference between a visionary like myself and a sorry corporate clown like you. Clearly, one cannot find the meaning and purpose of life in the elimination of human waste, per se. However, confronting the ugly corporate reality of human waste elimination does yield certain insights, which, properly reframed, may then point one further along the crooked path to finding the meaning and purpose of life. And where might your insights lead you, Felix wondered. But before Felix could complete his thought, Arthur bolted from the room in search of his next clue to the meaning and purpose of life. If following the trail of human waste had merely led him to a savage world of greed and avarice, then Arthur knew his quest must move to an even more elementary level. Arthur's quest turned to money, that social scourge pitting human waste eliminators against one another, rich and poor. If to uncover the meaning and purpose of life, one must begin with humanity's most basic needs and proclivities, such as the elimination of human waste, and if to understand the elimination of human waste meant first to understand a multi-billion profit-soaked industry, then Arthur knew he could not begin with human waste after all. Indeed, it seemed the generation of human waste was nothing more than the residue of his real object of inquiry, money. Arthur grabbed a taxi and headed across town to meet with his stockbroker, stopping briefly to use a public urinal. That closes chapter 2. Prepare yourself, if you can, for chapter 3 next week. Now, ignore the clumsy leaning forward to turn off the phone as if it were a natural continuation of what's going on.